Hey, this is Mike Lindsay from Vital MX, and we're going to tell you what we learned this Friday at Thunder Valley in Lakewood, Colorado. So Friday is normally our media press day. The guys get some on-time, on-track action, and we get some time to interview them. Today was interviews only, no on-track action due to the weather. Simple, it's been raining this week quite a bit. We got a decent amount of rain today, even some hail. It didn't only cancel just the press riding portion, but also the WMX motos that were supposed to run today. So that's actually been pushed into tomorrow. That's the first update we're going to give you. So schedule for tomorrow so far is supposed to be normal for all the men's racing, albeit if we get enough rain tonight, there is a chance they could cut the first practice sessions tomorrow. But as of right now, we are looking good on the weather side for tomorrow. But because the WMX motos were washed out today, they're going to get one moto at the end of tomorrow around 5:15. And before that, they will get one morning practice session about noon or so. I think either right before or right after the men's consolation races. So the women have been cut to one moto. It's a 15-minute plus one lap, but it's at the end of the day, and it will be live stream on Peacock. So if you want to check out their racing, you can once the second 450 moto is finished up. So let's talk about some paddock updates. So HRC rig is behind me. Let's start there. They're full field, of course, still this weekend. Jet, Hunter on the 450s, Joe Schmo 250, and Chance Hymas. Chance did have to bow out last weekend due to illness, coming off of food poisoning week, just unable to get through the day. He is back this weekend. He said he feels fine. He actually went back to Idaho to ride this weekend. That's where he's from. He spent 2 days practicing at home. It sounds like he's going to stay in Idaho, I believe, next week. Just enjoy some time back in familiar surroundings before making the move back to Florida, back to the Lawrence compound to finish out the Pro Motocross season. Another update, of course, is Seth Hamaker is out. I announced this last night on Twitter, X, whatever the heck we're calling it these days. Kawasaki did release that officially today that he will not be competing this weekend. It's all due to his crash last weekend. So he actually went down, I think it was second or third corner before Big Mo with Nate Thrasher, and then he got up and made it a couple more sections, and to put it bluntly, cartwheeled his brains out. We caught it off, it was caught off camera, just saw him walking off. Kawasaki has announced that he's out for the weekend. They haven't really given the update further, but after talking to his management, it sounds like he is just going to be out for Lakewood. They're pretty confident he'll be back for a high point. He has a banged up shoulder, which if you've seen him at any point this season, jersey off, his one shoulder is already pretty taped up. He also had to have quite a bit of stitches, so don't know if he caught a foot peg or what. They were kind of quiet about that, but we do know he had quite a few stitches put into either his arm or side, so he is out for the weekend, be back for next weekend. Speaking of Kawasaki, let's move to the next topic, Jorge Prado. If you checked out our interview that our own Lewis Phillips did with him last weekend, Jorge's been commenting quite a bit about being down on power. So we went over to their rig and talked to their crew chief today and kind of got an update on where they're at and what they've been testing. They said, yes, Jorge does like a lot of torque, a lot of bottom end. They feel like they're missing there. But the interesting thing is, while Jorge is smooth, he doesn't ride in like small throttle increments. I think like a lot of people would picture a Jet Lawrence like blipping around. Jorge is a very big throttle opening, a big power load kind of person, but he wants to do it from low RPM. They are aware of this. They've been working that way. They said they did more testing this week. This is a little different. They have kind of an elevation spec for Thunder Valley, but they're going to keep working from there. They basically, overall, the team doesn't seem concerned. They are, but in a sense that they're like, hey, we expected this. Their opinion is they're probably going to test the entire Pro Motocross season trying to get him set up and happy. They said this is a big transition. And as we've stated on our channel, our pods, like, hey, this is not an easy thing Jorge's doing. It is one thing to come from MXGPs to the US when you're an MX2 rider, but to come straight into the Premier class, it hasn't really been done since like Sebastian Tortelli or Greg Albertine. So we're talking about early 2000s, late 1990s. Like nobody's really done this in a long time. It's a completely different brand. He expects a lot of himself. Jorge is definitely, you can tell, not happy with getting 5th and 6th and 7th. He wants it to go faster, but the team is aware this is going to be a process. So they are doing a lot of engine testing with him at the moment. They knew coming into it that's what he liked, and they're just slowly working on that, trying to dial it in. And when we asked them, like, okay, if you knew this was going to happen, why has it been accomplished quicker? They said, you know, as he settles in more with the bike, the tracks, he's learning what he really needs here, and they're learning more about him. Larry Brooks riding by with Colt Nichols' machine. Colt Nichols and Benoit Patrell, of course, over at Twisted Tea Suzuki. We do know that they are working on Ken Roxon potentially coming back for a couple nationals later in the year. Of course, his contract, he is not actually scheduled to race all Pro Motocross, but that is in the wings. Let's talk about another big piece of news. Caden Menier, Australian, will be turning professional, I guess technically turning professional this weekend for the Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing Squad. They were building out Jeremy Martin's bike. As we also know, speaking of news, Jeremy Martin is sitting out outdoors until the Millville round, where he'll basically make his kind of retirement race, and then that will be it for the year. So in the meantime, they built his bike, switched over the components for Caden Menier this weekend. Menier is going to get to race here in Lakewood just to kind of shake it out. Menier is the eldest or most ready of the amateurs they have in the wings, so they're definitely kind of evaluating him to go pro into next year. He is still planning on racing Loretta's this year in the combines, so they're going to race Thunder Valley tomorrow. If it goes well, they think they can do 2 more nationals and keep him under the point spread, because they've changed the rules recently. We've seen guys race a pro national or 2, but still be able to do Loretta's. It's all within the rules. They really would like him to do Southwick, because apparently he's a very good sand rider, and then maybe the other round would either be next week in a High Point or maybe Millville. It won't be Redbud though because of the combine. So they think they'll get 3 nationals in with him before they go to Loretta Lynn. So look out for Caden Menier this weekend. Little tech thing we noticed traveling around the pits. RJ Hampshire has switched to air forks this weekend. And contrary to popular belief, a lot of the KTM group has moved that way when we're talking about the KTM Gas Husky group. Particularly with our contacts in the GPs, it sounds like almost every major rider for them is on an air fork. So now in the US, you have RJ Hampshire on air, you have Julian Beaumer on an air fork, you have rider Di Francesco on air, Casey Cochran is on air, and Aaron Plessinger. Aaron Plessinger switched for outdoors. RJ just switched either this weekend or the round before. Juju's been on it for a little bit, and I believe Ryder and Casey have both, I think, been on it for a while. So that leaves on a spring fork, you have Malcolm Stewart. You also have Tom Vial, and they're on a traditional, more like cone valve WP fork, while we all know Chase Sexton is still on like a KYB WP hybrid fork. Speaking of Sexton, he is still not back this weekend. A little bit of contradictory info, but it does sound more from Chase's direct information to one of our editors. I think they are targeting Redbud. He is targeting Redbud for his return, but at the same time, that's not locked down, that's not official. He could come back at a different time. Still quiet on why he's sitting out, but he is banged up, and we hope to see him returning soon. Speaking of air fork versus spring fork, there's one other team we found on a little bit of a split there, that being the Triumph Factory Racing Squad. Mikkel Harrup and Jordan Smith are both on KYB PSF1 air fork, while Austin Faulkner is on spring forks. Those are also the 3 riders under the tent that will be racing this weekend. Styles Robertson is going to be sitting out, further evaluating what to do with his wrist. He's pretty much been dealing with this wrist injury for 2 years now. He's had over 7 surgeries on it, and at this point, his return, it's kind of like an indefinite hiatus. They really have to figure out how he's going to get through this, stabilize the wrist, and make it, where he can get back to racing. They've already switched over his bike and got it prepped, or it's another bike they loaded. Jalik Swoles is under the tent, is graphicked up. We've heard he could potentially return. At the beginning of the season, they were thinking maybe as early as High Point, which would be next weekend. If not, I think we would see him at either Southwick or Redbud, but it does sound like Jalik Swoll will be returning to the track quite soon for the Triumph squad. One other interesting conversation we had this weekend was some of the staff at the Quadlock Honda team. The Australian-based team has had a banner year with Joey Savatgy and Shane McElrath in the 450 class, and upon talking to the team owner Yariv, it does sound like, those 2 riders should be back with them for next year. It also does sound like they may be expanding their 250 operation. There's a good chance that they will run 2 250s next year. So again, really cool to see that team continuing to grow, continuing to thrive here in the US. And then lastly, speaking about a team that has some possible movement, the Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing Squad has quite a few riders under contract. They still have Pierce Brown for next year, Max Anstey, they have Nate Thrasher. They also have Hayden Deegan, at least for Supercross. He may move up to the 450 come outdoors. We'll have to wait and see on that. Cole Davies. But then you have riders like Michael Moseman and Daxon Bennick that are out of contract. They are talking to both riders potentially about keeping them. But in the same breath, both those riders are talking to other teams. And we've heard many people in the paddock that are looking at both Moseman and Bennick potentially for 2026 if they do not end up staying at Star Racing. And then from the amateur side coming up, there's a lot going on at Star. Of course, we were talking about Menier. We also have Caden Dudney in the wings. He could turn pro. He is eligible to turn pro, may get his pro license here soon. They also have some younger kids in the wings, but also one that's being reported on this week, and we can confirm, is they have signed Landon Gordon. Gordon is basically the top Team Green kid at the moment. He is with Team Green through at least Loretta's, but shortly after that, we expect to see him make the switch to Star Racing. Not a huge shocker. He's been under the tutelage of Will Hahn for at least the last year, year and a half, and now, of course, Will Hahn has returned to Star Racing in a team manager role. So not a big shocker for him to see him bring kind of his guy with him. As we've seen, Will has had a really good track record with amateurs such as Cole Davies and a few others he worked with before that. So those are some of the things we learned this Friday at Thunder Valley. If you have any thoughts, any questions, throw them in the comments section below.